This is the Investor Connect podcast program. I'm Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of this show in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, family offices, private equity, and many other investors for early stage and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Investor Connect is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors and startups for fundraising. Please consider donating $100 to the program to help others in their investor and entrepreneur journey. You can find the donate button on the investorconnect.org website. Well, hello, this is Investor Perspectives. I'm the host of Investor Connect, Hall T. Martin, where we connect startups and investors for funding. Today we have joining us Redg Snodgrass, founder, chairman, and CEO of 5of5.vc. Reg, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much, Hall, for having me. It's fun to talk about this stuff.
Great. Well, let's start off with tell us more about yourself and your firm.
For me, and I'll try to give you a little bit of highlights and things like that. I've been an entrepreneur in the Valley for quite a while. It's not like my favorite term. I like to think we're business people or whatever. Entrepreneurship is almost like a mental defect that we get born with, some of us. So I started at Squaretrade, which is e-commerce, early days in the early 2000s. And we did warranty programs. So I learned there, went on and helped build a mobile app with a bunch of other founders called Skout. And that was pretty big. They raised money from Andreessen Horowitz. It was one of the larger things. And then I was at Alcatel-Lucent Bell Labs and working out of Austin and Dallas and all over the world and around APIs and things. And really on the innovation center. Later in my career, I would start an accelerator that had around 100 companies go through it in US, China, Europe, based primarily out of the Valley. And we were 17 of 17 for the crowdfunding campaigns. We were wearables and hardware. And some of the early crowdfunding campaigns came through our program. We'll talk about those in later conversations. But for me, in 2016, we'd raised a significant amount of money in China. And so I wanted it, that was just not the time to be in business in China. A lot of things changed. And so I needed to take a break too. Just personally, my dad passed away. And so I spent the better part of the last few years as either an EIR or just really trying to take a break and understand what the next iteration is. And so 5of5 is birthed out of kind of a lot of the experience that I've had personally as a founder, helping other founders, professionally with ReadWrite, the accelerator at Wearable World IOT, and all these other things. And the whole focus of 5of5 is really focused around saving time for entrepreneurs. And time we break down into an acronym, right? It's timing, intelligence, methodology, and energy. And we feel like those are constants. And so for us, the way that we help entrepreneurs save time is we go over a market map of your industry, your specific market, your competitors, and we just kind of map that alongside you, understand who it is. And then we look at the teams specifically competing in these projects or products.
So how do you see crowdfunding as an investment option? How do you compare it to other solutions?
So I think it's important to kind of understand macroly where all this stuff has kind of come from. And so I look at early days when crowdfunding and pink sheets and NASDAQ were kind of brand new.
Cool. So how do you see crowdfunding as a fundraising tool?
So I think the best example of this is a team that I worked with out of Slovenia. So part of my break, my wife and I live in Europe, and Žiga Vrtečić, which is a hard name to say. I'll give it to you because you want to remember his name. He is probably pulled off the most, and Scully motorcycle helmets. There were a lot of companies early days that went through our labs that we saw, notoriously known, and some that actually went off and did some pretty great things. What Žiga did with Bird Buddy, are you familiar with them?
No.
So Bird Buddy is a connected birdhouse, right, that you hang in your backyard. And I believe last I checked, and I should have looked right before the podcast, but it was like 11 million euro raised. Small team out of Slovenia. Žiga takes that concept that I have of time and he crushes it, right? I remember early days when he started, and he was adamant and disciplined around that product market fit, right? And pulling all those things together. it's a wonder what Bird Buddy has pulled off. I don't think anybody, in terms of happy, excited ability, like right now, it's got to be one of the number one, if not the top product over the last year.
Cool. So where have you seen crowdfunding solve the startup funding problem the most? Which group you think benefits here?
Oh, it's definitely smart, intelligent people without the connections for early stage capital. That's it. I mean, it's I remember I was raising for one of my fourth companies, right? And one of the VC I met, it said something along the lines of, well, if you don't put in $1 million of your own money, I'm not going to put any of my money in. And I was like, okay, cool. But that just means you're only investing in other rich people.
Right. So how does crowdfunding cooperate or compete with angel and venture capital investing? Where do you see it overlapping?
I think it's very complementary. I mean, it's I take so Giga, they started raising 50,000 and at a really low valuation, and then they closed another round recently from decent VCs based out of Europe, right? At a decent valuations unheard of, that they would never have gotten just starting this idea without the ability to use Kickstarter. Right. And I'd love for Giga to tell the story. It's like I'm fronting a little bit too much. I'm more admired it than anything from afar. But if you look at like what you're able to do with product market fit, creating a good ecosystem of rabid fans around that thing. I mean, it does. It makes it a little bit easier for you to trust where your money's going to go. You can line out where your cogs are going to be. I mean, the issue is that the early product that you usually create, your early prototypes, it's very difficult to scale because you don't have the same componentry, right? It takes talent to be able to go from 400 pieces to 40,000. That's very different than those 400 pieces, right? Different mindset.
Cool. And so what startups are successful with crowdfunding, and why are they successful?
I over and over and over again, like I would look, and I was trying to figure out what were the key things of the startups that always worked, and to large or small scale, right? The startups that I saw most successful were the ones that were able to create an audience initially, create influence in that audience, create products that align specifically to what that audience wants, and then create this feedback promotion level of joy and excitement, like getting those early dopamine hits.
So who is not successful with crowdfunding, and why do you see some of these campaigns fail?
Oh, it's just the inverse, man. It's somebody with a great idea that thinks their product is amazing, but doesn't take the time to be disciplined to build audience.
Absolutely. So, the funding limit moved from 1 million to 5 million this past year. What do you think we'll see next coming out of crowdfunding?
So if you have people in equity crowdfunding markets that are locked in, right, and the secondary market is starting to become available, like, I was reading a little bit about it. If you have that, equity open up, it's another highly volatile asset that's extremely liquid with the ability for fast returns.
You think we'll see a lot of new regulations coming up from the SEC around secondaries now that they're on the crowdfunding portals?
No. I mean, I haven't seen very much come out about SPACs, right? How long has SPACs been in market, really? I mean, it's like 5 years now, like since they started really it was the hot thing. So crowdfunding and by nature, there's a lot more regulatory stuff that's already there. So the people that have those jobs, like they're gonna do some stuff, but seeing a major shift where there's real policy change, you see minor nips and tucks around the cannabis industry, right? You see minor things around, crypto assets. When are they going to have time? How many years is it going to take for them to actually come up with a real thorough plan? I would love to see a strong regulatory framework. I don't know who would deliver it. that has the experience, that cares about it, that has lobby money to actually make it an issue. Right. The people that have the lobby money in this regards are the ones that don't want there to be regulatory constraint.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing this with us today, and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
All right. I appreciate it.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early-stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.